to September's Power Hour. Today we are going to be joined by Andy Wendell. He is Chelan PUD's Director of Customer Service and Stakeholder Outreach because we like really long titles around here. And he's also worked with the PUD since he was basically 15-ish or so. So he knows a ton about what's going on and has answers to all of your questions, even the hard ones. So bring it today. Hello, Andy.
Hey, Lacy, how's it going? I love the introduction. Great.
Oh, good. Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
have fly fishing gear in my animation software. I'm sorry. It's just standard. You're wearing shoes, not waders. I know, but
You did great. My only ask next time is make my hair a little bit darker.
okay. Yeah, I know. I know it's hard. Like, yeah, I try to, look on images because we've actually
Yeah.
never met in person still to this
Oh,
day.
wow. That's sad.
Um,
You're just down
so
the
it's
hall.
yeah, I know. This is bad. I was a COVID hire. What do you do? Over
Yeah,
2 years ago. We have
right?
no excuses.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of new employees that, unfortunately, I don't know their names. I don't know where they work. I need to get out of my office more for sure. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Okay, cool.
Uh,
Well, thank you for joining us.
mm,
For all
yep,
the
my
folks
pleasure.
watching right now, they can drop their questions into the chat and I can read those for you. You can answer them live here on the Power Hour. Um, but we just wanted to queue it up. We have a couple of questions that folks sent in that are a little bit timely because it's hot this summer. And so there's a lot going on with the Western grid in
Yeah.
particular. Um, I am curious. I'm just going to start with some California references. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So Shawn was curious. California, it seems like this time of year it gets really hot. They do these things called flex alerts. Are we going to have issues like they are with blackouts?
Yeah, Sean, thanks. That's a great question. And unfortunately, there's some pretty big challenges on the West Coast, Texas, California. We hear a lot about that on the news, about those blackouts and, exceeding the electric system's capacity down there, with all the growth and expansion. So the good news is here in North Central Washington and Chelan County in particular, we definitely have an abundance of electricity, and as a result, we are not facing those types of blackouts or rolling brownouts, as they refer to them. In fact, with our three hydroelectric power plants on the Columbia River, Chelan County PUD produces far more energy than we use locally in our county. About 80% of our power that we generate is sold out on the market, including to California. And the remaining 20% is power that we use here locally. Now, we do have some challenges, of course, with our distribution system in delivering that power from our hydro projects to our customers' homes. And we need to be cautious about those delivery systems, and we continually look at that through our modeling and our forecasting to try to build new lines and substations and things to make sure we can deliver that power from our hydro projects to our customers. The bottom line, Lacey and Sean, is that we do not have any any forecasts or any need to do blackouts now or likely into the future.
Sorry,
Lacey,
I was muted.
oh, okay, that's all right. Yeah,
It's a one woman show over here. I do the I
right
do the
on.
screen and
Doing
sometimes I
everything.
forget when I mute myself.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so folks don't need to go out and like I've a few friends in California, don't tell anyone. But they've gone and gotten generators because
Yeah.
there's this fear of, well, what if our power goes out? We don't want to, lose everything in the fridge or we have needed devices. But here, that's not something that you would necessarily recommend.
No, certainly we do have. What's unique is California is clearly has high demand year round, and the temperatures are relatively consistent from winter to summer. They are a summer peaking region, meaning they consume the most energy during the heat of the summer. In Chelan County, we're just the opposite. Because of our cold winters, we have winter peaking, so our system is stressed the most on that coldest day of the year in January or February. In the summertime, it's relatively moderate, as you know, Lacey. It can certainly get warm here, but we are a winter peaking utility. That said, some of our customers in the rural areas of Chelan County, they do buy generators in the event of a major winter storm or something of that nature. In my tenure here, Lacey, I think 2 days has been the longest power outage, and that was in a very remote area in the mountainous terrains of Lake Wenatchee. In that area, generally speaking, our power outages, our interruptions in service are really small and short in duration. Knock on wood, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. I think we're really spoiled in Chelan County. I've lived in other places where the power goes out frequently, and for a
Uh,
lot longer times than I've been here. But
yeah.
there has been some chatter, if you will, about all this squirrel-related
Ah,
stuff this summer. Do you have a fix?
yeah. Yeah. Squirrels related power outages. A lot of people just might not even be aware, but those pesky squirrels can really cause challenges for us to keep the lights on. A lot of our infrastructure and about half of the power lines in Chelan County, and really in most utilities, the the overhead power lines are subject to outages related to, of course, weather, extreme weather conditions, but also animals and birds. Birds and squirrels, in particular, are two of the highest contributors to power outages or interruptions in service, not only here at Chelan County PUD, but all over the United States. Now, there's some things that we're doing, Lacey. We're definitely looking at a variety of different technologies and protection schemes such as improved fusing and kind of coordination of our electric system to minimize the amount of outage, but also reduce the duration of the outage. And then we're doing some basic stuff that we're putting animal guards up on the transformers and other electric equipment where those squirrels or birds would get in between, wires and electrical components. And um, some of the squirrel guards that we were putting on, obviously, will allow them to continue to crawl around on that stuff, but not create an outage. So it's a
Okay.
big challenge for us, and it seems like there's a big increase in squirrel outages. And we looked at the data this year, and it's basically tripling every year for the last 5 years in terms of the number of outages that we've
Why? What's
we've
what's the
seen.
beta on squirrel populations? Are they like exploding or what's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. I think that there is. We hear a lot about rats, and they do also create power outages both for our overhead and underground. But squirrels in particular they're just they're growing in numbers here in the region. And we have gone through cycles. In fact, I was talking to one of our operations managers just this morning, and it was about 15 years ago. We saw kind of a increase in um, squirrel outages across our system, and they just kind of taper through. So, maybe the population of them cycles through every 15 years. Hopefully, we're on the downhill side, but it doesn't look like it right now. So, we're doing what we can. A couple things that our customers can do that's really important is if we do have outages associated with squirrels, or they see squirrels in and around transformers or electric equipment, call us, let us know the location, tell us your address. We can make sure that we have the right animal guarding on those transformers in people's backyards or
Now
in
you're
their
gonna be
particular
inundated with
area.
calls of people saying, "I have a
Hey,
squirrel in my backyard."
Listen, if it saves a power outage, we're okay with that.
Okay.
Just let us know where there's squirrel activity. The other thing to do, and this is a tough one because in the wintertime, Lacey, people of course want to feed those animals. They think they're starving or whatever. But if you can just kind of avoid
Whatever.
feeding the squirrels, if you can
Okay.
avoid feeding the squirrels, that's great. It doesn't encourage their living there at that location. So
Okay. All right, cool. So you're on it. You're on it, and
yeah,
you
yeah.
would love some calls about elevated squirrel activity near power
Yeah,
lines.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. If you got a name for them, let us know the name if they, I'm kidding.
Yeah, like, do the linemen we can let go of this soon, but, like, do the
Uh,
linemen find the squirrel? Is that how the source is or they
Generally speaking, if there's a power outage associated with an animal, whether it's a bird or a squirrel, they find evidence, and usually that's in the form of, a charred bird or a squirrel. And I know that's a little grotesque, but
yeah, so
yeah.
we have an animal lover. Josh is asking, how do we make our infrastructure safer for our furry friends?
Well, that's a good question, and Josh, thanks for asking that question. Everybody loves to see them, and they're generally a friendly animal. But again, we're doing what we can to install those animal guards on those pieces of equipment. In some cases, in rural areas, particular areas that are subject to wildfires, we're converting overhead lines to underground, which significantly reduces outages with squirrels as well. And then there's another uh, wire that's called tree guard wire, and it's something that we don't use in our system today, but we're actually looking at the feasibility of that today. It does two things. One is it's an insulated overhead wire, so when trees fall across it, it doesn't necessarily create sparks or fires, which is the primary benefit of that wire. But also it minimizes, squirrels coming into contact with that open conductor or that open wire. So it does reduce some animal outages as well. So we're looking at some new technologies. We're visiting with other utilities, what they're doing to resolve those issues and how they're handling them. It's not just here in Chelan County, but yeah. Josh, I hope you're not feeding those squirrels.
All right, we have another question for you. How are the PUD's growth projections looking, and how many new substations do you anticipate you'll need to build in the coming years?
Yeah, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that Chelan County is growing in particular. Just take a drive up to Lake Chelan or the West Wenatchee foothills or up in Leavenworth. I mean, this area is growing exponentially. In fact, I was reporting to our Board of Commission about a year ago about some of the growth trends that we were seeing in 2020 and 2021. And I want to say, if I recall right, we were the third fastest growing county within the state of Washington. So if that tells you anything. In terms
Wow.
of electric consumption, we are seeing growth there as well. So we're seeing more homes built, more customers, more businesses coming into the area. And as a result, we need to keep up with that growth. We don't incent growth. And what I mean by
We're just
that,
the power company.
we're
We
just
are
a
not
power
we're
company.
not
That's
building
right.
homes.
We don't discourage it nor incent it. We respond to that growth. And so the way we do that is we try to forecast our energy demands on our system. And we do that over about a 10-year horizon. Right now, we're forecasting a little over 1.5% per year. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate it into um, a big number for people. 1.5% seems manageable, but from a system standpoint, we have pockets of growth. Let's take the North Shore of Lake Chelan as an example. I mean, there's just a massive amount of
Mm.
people moving there, and then people that had second homes there, Lacey, are actually living there permanently now with our fiber optic system, ways to be able to work remotely. What was once a vacation home is now a full-time resident. So we're seeing increased demand associated with that. So make long story short, we have to build new substations and power lines to serve all of those pockets of customers and new construction. In our forecast, we're forecasting 13 new substations across Chelan County. Right now, we have a
13.
total the 13. We have a total of about 35 substations right now. So 13
13 is
is,
insane.
it's insane. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
our forecast over the next 10 years, and we're planning to build one new one a year. And we're very active on that. I think seven of the substations we have properties now, and so we're working through the design and shortly into the construction phase of things. We're still looking for property for the additional six that are remaining out there, but it's a challenge. Those substations are expensive. They can
No
run
doubt.
anywhere between $3 and $7 million a piece. It's a real challenge both financially and just to resource the construction of those. Yeah, acquiring materials, the transformers, things. It's a big challenge for us. It's one of our
So
number one challenges. Mhm.
so we have a very important Delbert Power question. Is there a correlation to the growth of population and the squirrel growth population?
That's a good question. Probably some kind of correlation. The other thing is that if I've been here in this valley for 32 years now, Lacey. And when you drive up through the residential areas of Wenatchee, the canopy was, 30 years ago, the trees were smaller. There wasn't, a lot of them per se. I mean, some of the older neighborhoods there were. But there is definitely, those homes that were built in the 1990s, and they put that small fir tree in that was a foot or two tall. It's now 60 feet tall and a full
Mhm.
canopy and a great living space. So I'm not a biologist, but you could presume that there's a lot more areas for those squirrels and birds to live within, our neighborhoods, and as a result, they're running around on our power lines and creating havoc. So
Yeah, we're just making homes for our furry friends.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about this, anticipated growth? I mean, to say that we have, low 30s and we're adding 13, that's a lot of additional substations that are going in.
yeah,
But will it impact, people often ask about how things impact our rates or
hmm
reliability or any of that.
yeah. No, those are great questions. We are faced with a big price tag on those. We're forecasting around $70 million over the next 10 years. With that, we're not forecasting rate increases. And our Board of Commission, through our strategic planning process, engaged our community and said, look, we have to respond to this growing demand. It costs money. How do you want us to recover that money? Would you like us to build it into rates, or would you like us to, have fees and charges and other upfront capital charges to recover those costs? And the community basically came back and said, "Hey, we want you to respond to growth. We want you to build the infrastructure to support them, and we want you to do it a little bit through rates, but primarily through the fees and charges." And so what that means is that supports what we call our growth pays for growth philosophy. So new construction essentially would pay for the costs for the capital infrastructure
Mm.
to build these substations. So in fact, in 2022, in April of 2022, we adopted a new system impact fee that for new services. So to give you a perspective of what that is for a residential service, a new residential service, um, it's about $1,200 to connect to the system for a new residential service. Depends on the size of the service and that. But
Mm.
so that's how we plan to recover those costs, and that supports the district's philosophy of growth pays for growth.
So, how do
Mhm.
we keep our rates so darn cheap?
Well, that's another great question, and this is something, Lacey, that I don't think very many of our customer owners understand, kind of the financials or the um, the rates associated with Chelan County PUD. Of course, I think everybody recognizes we have low rates, and that's important. And
The
we've
second
heard,
lowest in the country.
yeah, yeah,
Not
second
low.
lowest in the country.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some of the
very
lowest.
right, some of the lowest in the country. And how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of ways that we do that. And one is that power that I talked about that we generate. 80% of the power that we generate through our hydro projects is sold out on the market, either sold through long-term power sales contracts or kind of the spot market, daily markets. There's a variety of different ways we sell that and market that power. But the
Which,
revenue,
if you're interested in that, Shawn Smith, who is in charge of our energy trading, he's going to be here in October. Just a little
awesome.
plug. He will
That
answer
will
all
be
of
a good
those
one.
trading questions. So go ahead.
Yeah, that Lacey, that'll be a good one. Yeah, tune into that. I'm going to tune into that one for sure. But essentially, we can yield a lot more revenue for that power that we generate on the markets than we do locally. Okay. That said, we serve our customers locally first, and we have an obligation to serve them, and we will continue to do that. But what we do with those revenues that we get from what we call our off-system sales, we bring those in and we buy our rates down for our customers. You could call it a subsidy, you could call it a contribution, but we buy our rates down by about 50%, right? So if we were to charge our customers the true cost to deliver that power to them, we would be doubling our electric rates. So we have about a 50% subsidization. Most people don't understand that. And it's a really important thing for our customers to understand that, to understand where that value comes from, and protect that. And we hear that. Those customers that do understand it, they're very protective of that subsidization. They want us to keep those rates low.
Yeah, and one good way to do that is to not use all of our energy locally. If we don't have any extra to sell, we don't have revenue coming in that we can buy down our local rates with.
That's right, Lacey. You know, the fact that we have 80% of our power, on average, 80% of our power is sold out on the market. That changes during the winter. It's
Oh, and Andy is gone. He'll come back, I promise. But I will take this opportunity to do a really quick plug because what Andy was talking about in terms of the cost to generate and serve our local needs with power versus the actual amount that all of us as residents we pay, it's about half. So we subsidize half of it. And so when we do our energy efficiency spiels and talking about, upgrading your windows and upgrading your to a heat pump and those kinds of things, um, the reason why Chelan PUD offers incentives and rebates on these ways to save energy at home and at local businesses is that it allows us to free up this other energy to sell elsewhere. And that money, we then in turn buy down our local rates so that power is even more affordable here. So that we only pay, like you said, about half of the actual cost of it. And right now, through the end of the year, all of our incentives for local business and rebates on home improvements, they have gone way up, sometimes 3 times more money we're offering. Um, to our customers to go with energy efficient products for their home. So you can check that out. You can go to chelanpud.org/save and find out all of those super boosted incentives and rebates. Now, Andy has completely disappeared, and I might try and figure out where he went. He just poof went off. You know, this is what happened a little bit with the EV show, but that's why we're here. Okay. So we do have one customer question who is asking about our new building at Old Station. So the question is, with people working remotely, will the building be 100% occupied? It's a great question. I think a lot of, I mean, we talk to our local businesses a lot through our energy efficiency programs, and a lot of the employers here are saying, people sometimes don't feel like coming back to the office. And Chelan PUD intends to have all of our folks back. We've been back in the office for several months, and we intend to maintain that moving into our new facility there at Old Station. So yeah, it's not actually a larger building. We currently have 5 campuses all over. So this is really a question of efficiency. We are centralizing everything so that when there is an outage, say up at Leavenworth, our crews who have their trucks here at HQ can, they no longer have to go by our Holly Street station and battle traffic to go up there. Being at Old Station, it's way more efficient to just hop in and go up there with fully loaded with all the kit they need. They don't have to go to different locations. So that's a great one. So this is a reply to Josh's question about our furry friends. The question was, are squirrels that die on PUD infrastructure donated to local food banks? Matthew, I mean, really? All right. If you guys have any questions for Andy, he is going to be coming back on any minute now. I will give him a little jingle. And you can just drop those into the chat. We can see them, and I can make sure that he answers those. If you guys can give me 2 seconds to give Andy a call, I would be super grateful. So this is why live streaming is fun. I have friends who work in broadcast media, and they have for decades. And they say the funnest part of live stream is that you never know what's going to happen. All right, let's give Andy a call here. See what's going on with his computer. Maybe you can just join me. Andy, where are you? Why don't you just come down to our HR room and you can come hang out with me? No, just come here. All right, sweet. So, to answer the question that we got, there are some benefits, even if people want to stay remote, there are some benefits to working at the office. Like when your live streaming fails, you can just come in person and answer questions. So I'm going to change my audio, so that when Andy comes here, we can hear him as well. 1 second here. Here he is.
Lacy, the squirrels did it.
I know. This is definitely a squirrel attack.
I just saw one running through the parking lot.
All right, great. Andy,
Yeah.
come on in.
Okay.
Nice to meet you in person,
Yeah.
friend.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Well, you missed a couple of jokes,
Okay.
as well as there was this question that we had. I sort of answered the occupation, how much will be occupied. But Francisco's question about the service center, we've been getting a lot of questions about it because we're closer to opening in April.
Yeah. Will the building be 100% occupied? So it's a good question. So actually, the new service center is designed to have some expansion capabilities in the future. Although all of the square footage will be occupied initially, but some of the square footage, at least in the administrative part of the building, the main building that you see, would be able to be reconfigured to put more employees in that space. So yes, it'll be 100% occupied initially, but it is designed to have growth and expansion incorporated with it. And then if you look kind of to the south of the property, there's several metal roof buildings those are specifically operational buildings for vehicles, material storages, and other operational type usages. And some of those buildings are designed to have a second floor for office space as well, for future expansion as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, and I explained how it's really a function of being able to optimize our business instead of having 5 campuses spread out around and having to battle North Wenatchee traffic. We can do our jobs.
That's right. That's the primary benefit right there, is centralizing our resources, our materials, and our people, and getting them out to the work locations much more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, cool. So Sue has a question. There's been a lot of chatter about AMI, so smart meters being replaced. Mm-hmm. Why does somebody want an AMI? Why would a customer want one?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Lacy, I've been working on evaluating advanced metering technology, or AMI, since 2007, if you can believe that. So it's been a long time. And the technology has advanced to the point where we really can't afford as a utility not to use this technology anymore. There are so many benefits. We could do a whole show just on AMI benefits. But some of the primary benefits specifically for a customer is their ability to look at their energy consumption much more aggregated level. Right now, if they call us and said, how much power do I use? We can tell them 1 read a month. So that's 12 reads
Or an
a
estimated
year, or an estimated
read.
amount. So folks that want to use their energy more efficiently or in different ways will have access to aggregated hourly data for residential and 15-minute data for their residences or their businesses. In addition to how much energy they're consuming, there's a whole spectrum of power quality attributes that we can look at. So specifically looking at their voltage, right? To see is there quality voltage coming into the meter and going out. So just troubleshooting power quality issues is amazing. There's future programs such as prepaid services. You've probably heard a little bit about that. Very, very similar to prepaid phone services where you can just pay a little bit at a time. Right now, we give you the power that you use it, and we bill you monthly kind of after the fact. Prepaid services is super popular. AMI is the provisioning technology to be able to use prepaid services. Notifications, advanced notifications. If there's a power outage, the meters can send us a signal, and through a customer portal, we can communicate with customers, a text message on your phone, whatever.
Yeah, directly to only those who lack power instead of
That's
broadly.
right. So Josh there is worried about squirrels. He could
Josh, you are now the squirrel friend.
Yeah, he is. He could see that there's power outage associated with his home. And then when the power comes back on, send a message that the power's back on. So if you're on vacation somewhere and you're worried about, your power being out during the winter time or what have you, these meters have the capability to communicate both with us as well as the customer. So there's just a whole spectrum of advanced technology benefits for our customers. And then there's the utility side, Lacy, and that's a long list of benefits. Essentially, I'm going to frame it into one statement about AMI, is we will be able to manage our electric system much more efficiently, much more effectively, and much more reliably by using AMI technology.
Yeah, we can serve you better.
We can definitely serve customers better. I'd say too, the Chelan PUD is a late adopter with this technology.
Oh, totally.
Other utilities in Washington, most have an AMI, and in the country, there's I think there's around 75 million AMI meters out there in the country today. So
yeah, there's a lot of meters.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question coming in here. Matthew's asking, does the PUD have any plans to change any of their athletic fields at Hydro or Walla Walla to artificial turf, reducing the maintenance cost and improving surface quality and reducing goose poo in the fields?
Yeah, the goose poop is almost as bad as the squirrels.
Yeah, we've got a lot of pests here.
That's a great question, Matthew. I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that we are converting some of the tennis courts to pickleball courts.
Pickleball's hot right now.
Pickleball's super hot. Have you played it? Because I haven't played it.
No, but I will say, I won't out who it is, but a colleague did come in sprained after playing with some retired ladies.
Oh, really?
And he lost.
He lost. That's funny. So we're doing some of that. However, I can take that question back, Matthew Wilson, and we can get that answered. The ideas sound great, but I just don't know if that's been looked at in terms of the feasibility.
Oh, but like the Apple Cup, the playing surface that they have on there, where I think it's like recycled tire or something in between the AstroTurf. It feels all cushy and it's got to be better on the joints. Yeah, I think he has something there.
Yeah, I apologize. I just don't know the answer to that. Yeah. That's one of the hard ones.
Yeah, this is one of the hard ones.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Andy can definitely answer, except for this one. So, Andy, all of our teams across the PUD, we've seen a big uptick in questions from customers like this. I see the solar ads. Is this the last year that I can get solar incentives? And is it worth the investment?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I'm not a big social media guy, but I have seen on social media advertisements that almost look like we're advertising solar for our customers. They go along the lines of saying, you know, hey, put solar up in Washington State at no cost, and you know, you'll get this, you'll save, you know, you'll cut your power bill in half, and so on and so forth.
It sounds a little bit too good to be true.
The reality of it is it's a little too good to be true. Now, let me just be clear about this. Wind and solar are fantastic renewable resources. I think the country can benefit from having more wind and solar. They need to be appropriately located. And the fact of the matter is Washington State and Central Washington, although the sun shines here a lot, it really isn't that conducive for good solar. And that fact combined with our rates, the return on investment for a customer for a large capital installation on a residential home, the return on that investment is so slow or so long, they may not be able to get that return before
they will.
Things failed.
Yeah.
So it's a bit about our rates, as well as just that solar, with our latitude, it's just difficult. Now, if you're in Arizona or California, of course, it makes a lot of sense. But here, I would just tell our customers to be cautious, to ask questions, to really, really turn over each stone before they make that investment of having somebody install that on their home.
Yeah. I worked with Jim White, our senior conservation engineer, and we created a little explainer video that you can find here at chelanpud.org/solar. It's like 2 minutes. It explains the economics of it. It gives you a good tool, PV watts calculator, which is done by the national laboratories, so that you can actually cost out and estimate how much your panels will generate for your site. And the bottom line is, even if our rates were to double, your solar panel array is probably going to cost more than it will generate in its lifetime because of our super low rates. Right. So if you wanted to generate electricity, the best way to generate electricity is to stop using so much electricity. Because if we make this much electricity and instead of using all of it, we free some up through energy efficiency or just more mindful awareness of how we're using it, we've just effectively generated more energy that we can sell elsewhere. So that's a pretty cool feature. That's right. Energy efficiency instead of solar is actually way more cost effective. And when you insulate your attic, you're more comfortable too.
Good points.
Yeah.
In fact, you're offering some pretty amazing incentives from September through the end of the year.
September 1st through December 31st. Because our incentives are based off of the power market. So if the power market is hot, if prices are really high, if everyone wants clean hydro, because hydro, it's not, if we had coal generating plants and things like that, we would actually get a different price than our clean hydro. So because everybody wants clean hydro right now to meet their requirements for clean energy, our power markets are looking pretty good. So we're able to offer more money for energy efficiency products at home and at local businesses. So that's why. But we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. So our boosted incentives are just through the end of the year.
That's great. Get on them now, right? Though.
Yes.
Go to our website, chelanpud.org.
Yep. /save.
Yeah.
It's this guy. Or you can just give us a call. We're here. Yeah.
The same squirrel folks could call me.
Yeah, if you want to chat about squirrels, we also have a Josh who is a furry friend, lover of squirrels.
That's right. I think he would be great.
Ask for Josh Mitchell by name.
Yeah. He's gonna just hate it.
That's his number right here. Right. Cool. Well, Andy, you kind of hit all of these questions out of it. This is the last call. If you have questions for Andy Wendell, who I don't know. I mean, I do have one question.
Okay.
So you're called the director of customer service. When I think of customer service, I generally think of like a call center.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But that's not what you do.
Well, no. There's times where my area of responsibility will handle the call center, particularly during a big power outage and that. But we have new construction. So if you're applying for fiber or water, electric or wastewater services, you would come through our engineering group. So that's considered customer service as well. And then we do the community outreach side of things, which falls under customer service. So when we're, as an example, Lacy, when we're building a new substation or we want to build a new substation, we'll perform community outreach to help customers understand why we're there, what we're building, why we need to build it, and really seek their input on things like landscaping or other things. So customer service spans a broad spectrum here at the PUD. And when you've been here for 30 plus years, you tend to things kind of get bolted onto you, and they go with you from job to job. So
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much
it's
for
fun.
taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And all of your
you
questions. You're
Yeah.
kind of an institution here.
Well, I'm trying to pass that on. I think, what is it? 40% of our customers, or excuse me, 40% of our employees have been here for less than 5 years. You being one of them, right?
This is true.
So there's a lot of new employees coming in, and a lot of people with a lot of institutional knowledge have left. I look at it in my last handful of years. I want to try to transfer as much of that knowledge to those employees and customers as I can, because the story that Chelan County PUD has is a wonderful story, and the assets that we have, they need to be preserved, and it takes community involvement to help preserve those assets. We're as stewards of those resources, those hydro projects, the infrastructure that we have, those low rates, but it takes a village to hold on to that and protect it, because it's being threatened all the time, and we need to work together. So things like this help spread the word, and I really appreciate that. And we should do more of it for sure. So yeah.
Great. Well, Andy, thank you so much
Okay.
again. So, wait, hold on. We have one more question.
Okay.
Chrissy snuck in there. Does the PUD coordinate or support employees in local volunteer opportunities?
Does PUD support employees in local volunteer opportunities? Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of employees that do things supporting volunteer efforts. I think of Arbor Day as an example. We've funded and helped support through volunteers and providing trees. Maybe that's part of the reason why we've had squirrels. So many squirrels.
It's a cycle.
Right. The Salmon Festival in Leavenworth, Earth Day, I think is in Chelan. So there's,
and Wenatchee.
And Wenatchee. There's a tremendous amount of events that that employees volunteer to help at, whether that's a PUD booth, if you will, or information kiosk, or just volunteering. Habitat for Humanity is something that a lot of employees have been involved in the past. And I think there's just a long
Well, we have our annual giving campaign,
right.
Where employees get together and we donate via the community foundation.
That's right. And if there is a venue that is needing support, volunteer support, we can help spread that word internally, and employees can decide voluntarily to go help that. So I think we're up around 800 employees, including seasonals, and that's a lot of people in the community. So
it's a lot of horsepower.
Yeah, a lot of horsepower, right? So we'd love to help out where we could.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say one thing that was interesting to learn, coming here, is that as a public utility, although we have, our public power benefit programs, and the board is able to allocate those funds, we're not able to just straight gift public funds.
That's right.
And that was one thing that, requires a little bit of education around. So as an entity, Chelan PUD can't just start cutting checks to our favorite causes.
But this is a great question from Christy, where it's like, well, could we as employees write our own checks, or could we show up as volunteer in capacity?
Yeah, that gifting of public funds is something that, we take very seriously, and we have to be cautious. Without getting too far into the nuances, I would say, Lacy, if there's a benefit to the utility, if there's a direct benefit to the utility and our customers as a whole, then contributions and sponsorships can occur. Particularly as we talk about, say, if there's an advertising for energy conservation incentives, as an example in the Good Life magazine, something of that nature.
Sure.
That's where we can contribute to that subscription and that advertising and have a return. But so, yeah.
We have one more question.
Okay. So
Francisco's saying that he was worried about 5G. Now, should he be worried about radiation from smart meters?
Yeah. So I'd just say, Francisco, I empathize with your concerns. There's a lot of different information available out there around 5G and smart meters and, radiation as a whole. I would just caution you, Francisco, to make sure that you go to the right resources, the right place to get the information about both 5G and smart meters in terms of the health concerns that people have. The World Health Organization has some great resources and reports and studies. The Department of Energy has some fantastic reports on smart meters in particular. Now keep in mind that 5G and all these communications, including smart meters, they all are meeting standards through the FCC, the Federal Communication Coordination Councils, and the FCC basically makes a determination on what's safe and what's not safe. I can tell you that the particular smart meters that we have, the RF frequencies are similar to a cell phone, a cellular phone. The difference is you don't have that smart meter up to your ear all the time, right? Like
not very often, no.
Right. Like we do our phones in many cases, or we're carrying our phones on us many times. The way our smart meters are going to transmit is through RF, radio frequencies. And but what it does is it'll essentially it'll collect data basically all day long, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it'll send that radio frequency on a scheduled event about twice a day.
It's like little packets.
It's little packets, and it's pretty quick when it does it. It's millis when it sends that packets, but it's not sitting there, radiating or sending RF signals all day long, every day. That's a good thing for us because we can manage the traffic of data coming in and going out. But it's also something that I've seen the industry respond to since I've been looking at this technology is bundling that data and sending it in small packages a couple times a day to kind of reduce people's anxiety around that. I would say if, Francisco, if you're really concerned about, look at the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. These smart meters, even our cell phones, fall into what is called non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation has studies indicate that it can be harmful to your health if it's, you have exposure to your skin or cell structures over long periods of time. Non-ionizing radiation is not the fact. So this falls into what I consider the safe half of RF frequencies. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, this really is the last call. So next time on the Power Hour, we have Shawn Smith, who is our Managing Director of Energy Resources. So he is an economist by trade, and he is in charge of the energy traders. So these are the folks that take all of our energy and they sell it to large power users like, data centers or the Diamond Foundry or other, big projects that come to Chelan County or elsewhere, as well as on the actual wholesale market and sometimes even the spot market.
Yeah.
So like when somebody needs some power somewhere in the West, Chelan PUD is there to deliver.
Right. Yeah. Shawn is a fantastic presenter. He's really fun to listen to. He's super knowledgeable.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about
Yeah,
it.
send me a notice because I'm going to tune into that one for sure. So.
Cool. Well, Andy, thank you
Yeah,
again.
thank you. All right.
And yeah, we'll see
Okay.
you next time.
All right, Lacy.
See ya.